Scott McKenzie, Solution Warrior, coming at you. So, today's topic, we're going to talk about the language of leadership. So, I have learned this lesson the hard way, my friends. So, when I started out in business 25 years ago in my professional career, I've actually got a technical background and I started out as a programmer. And so, my default operating system thinks down in the details. And so when I was interfacing with my management teams, and I can remember a very specific instance. I was working on trying to solve a customer problem. I worked in tech support, and I was a tech support guy, and I was a programmer. And my leadership, we had a big deal that we were working on. And there were a lot of technical details around why we were having some challenges in delivering on this technical test. And so I got called into the general manager's office to talk about what the plan was. And I immediately went down this technical road of detail after detail after detail after detail. And I could tell that my leadership was getting visibly frustrated with the communication because I immediately jumped into this level of leadership of details that they were not looking for. And I was really frustrated with the communication. They were really frustrated with the communication. And I learned my first real lesson around speaking this language of leadership. And what it comes down to is that when we're having this conversation with leadership, the first thing we really want to do is to, and I'm going to say this, and this might sound controversial to you, but you need to leave out the details, right? You can think the details, and if they ask you for the details, then it's okay to bring the details to the conversation. But when you're having this conversation, you take them out. You don't need them, right? What they really are looking for is to have a strategic conversation and keep things at a high level. So think about this from this perspective. If I would have approached that conversation and communicated these problems at a very macro high level, it would have allowed for this conversation to go a lot smoother. I ended up getting berated and yelled at by the leadership team that I didn't know what I was doing, and that was because I couldn't effectively communicate at a high level what the action plan was and what we were doing about it. So in speaking this language of leadership, it's really important to keep the conversation at a high level. At one point in my career, I was a partner in a software company, and one of my colleagues, who was an amazing programmer. I mean, this guy, he really was the heart and soul of our business, and really built the product from the ground up. Every time, so my role flopped 10 years from that, from starting out as a technical guy to being a partner in this business. And so every time that this programmer and I would have a conversation, I knew I had to strap in, because I knew that we were going to be in for a literally 30-minute conversation no matter what we were talking about. And from my side, from being in the ownership side and being on that leadership side, what I wanted, I didn't want to hear all the details. What I wanted were the bullet points, right? I wanted to hear, what are the high-level problems, number one, and number two, what are you doing to solve them, right? And then what's the plan? Don't give me any more than that. I mean, I don't need to know why the color blue is the color blue and the history of the color blue dating back to ancient times, and why the refraction of the sunlight is telling me that the color blue is the color blue. I could really care, and that is, I learned on my end what the language of leadership was, because I was flip-flopping, and I had the perspective and the ability to be on that other side, and it gave me this interesting perspective to be able to communicate details all the way through high level. My default mode still is details, and I have to fight against it, So when I'm in a conversation with my prospects and the CEO level or the COO level or the VP level, I've learned how to transition that conversation. But it is important that you recognize really where you are on that spectrum. Are you a guy or a woman or a man who speaks in details? Are you pretty good at the middle? Are you pretty good at the high? And figure out what that communication style looks to you. So, Scott McKenzie, Supply Chain Warrior. Hope this is helpful.